It all started on what seemed like an ordinary day. I had been waiting for an important package, something I had been tracking for weeks. It wasn't just another online order. It was something valuable, something I needed. The moment I saw the delivered notification on my phone, I rushed outside, eager to finally hold it in my hands. But my excitement quickly turned to confusion when I found my porch empty. I checked everywhere, behind the flower pots, near the garage, even by the side gate. Nothing. My heart sank, but I tried to stay rational. Maybe the delivery driver had marked it as delivered prematurely. Hours passed, and I checked the tracking again. It was clear. My package was supposed to be there. The sinking feeling turned to irritation. Porch pirates? Unlikely. My neighborhood was supposed to be safe, or at least that's what the HOA kept bragging about in their overpriced newsletters. Then I remembered my security cameras. If someone had stolen my package, I'd have it on tape. I pulled up the footage on my phone, scrolling back to the time of delivery. At first, I saw the mailman approaching, placing the package down exactly where it should be. He left, and the package sat undisturbed for about 20 minutes. Then, movement. A woman walked up my driveway, head held high, as if she owned the place. It only took a second to recognize her, Margaret, our beloved HOA president. My jaw clenched as I watched the footage. She didn't hesitate, didn't even look around to see if anyone was watching. She just walked up, grabbed my package, tucked it under her arm, and strolled off like she was doing me a favor. I rewound the footage, watching it again in disbelief. She had the audacity to steal my package in broad daylight. It wasn't a mistake. Her expression was smug, like she had every right to do it. Anger boiled inside me. Who did she think she was? This wasn't a misplaced fine or some ridiculous violation notice. This was theft, mail theft, a federal crime. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. I wasn't going to let this slide. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and marched straight to Margaret's house. Her place wasn't hard to find. It was the one with the perfectly manicured lawn and the HOA-approved color scheme. She loved to flaunt her power, making sure her home was the shining example of proper neighborhood aesthetics. I rang the doorbell, taking a deep breath to control my temper. Moments later, Margaret appeared, opening the door with a smug smile. You, she said, crossing her arms. What can I do for you? I wasted no time. Where's my package? Her smile didn't falter. Package? I have no idea what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and played the security footage right in front of her. Her face paled slightly, but to my amazement, she didn't back down. Oh, that package, she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. Yes, I took it. It was left out in the open. I was simply keeping it safe. Safe? I blinked. Yes, she said, sighing dramatically. It was just sitting there. Anyone could have taken it. As HOA president, I take security very seriously. I plan to return it to you at the next board meeting. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's nonsense. You stole my package. Give it back. She scoffed. You should really be thanking me. Honestly, with how irresponsible some homeowners are, leaving things outside like that. Cut the crap, Margaret. Give me my package now. Her lips curled into a smug smile. I'm afraid it's already been processed. Processed? I frowned. She waved a hand dismissively. We have rules in this neighborhood. Packages left out for too long are considered abandoned property. And as HOA president, I have the authority to confiscate and redistribute as needed. I laughed in disbelief. That's not a thing. That's not how the HOA works. That's not how anything works. She tilted her head, still smirking. Well, you'll have to take it up with the board then. I'm sure they'll agree with me. My patience snapped. Fine. I'll take it up with the police. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. But it was gone just as fast. Oh, don't be dramatic, she scoffed. It was just a package. I narrowed my eyes. A federal offense, Margaret. Mail theft is a serious crime. You might think your little HOA kingdom makes you untouchable, but let's see how well that smug attitude holds up when the authorities get involved. For the first time, she faltered. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone. Watch me. She hesitated for a moment, then huffed. All right. No need to get so worked up. I'll look into where your package ended up. Do that, I said. Because if I don't have it back by tomorrow, I'm pressing charges. I turned on my heel and walked away, fuming. She might have thought she was untouchable, but she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Margaret had messed with the wrong person, and I wasn't just going to get my package back. I was going to take her down. The investigation begins. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Margaret's smug face, her condescending smirk as she dismissed my stolen package like it was her right to take it. By morning, my anger had settled into something colder, determination. I wasn't just going to get my package back. I was going to make sure she never pulled something like this again. At exactly 9 a.m., I marched back to her house. This time, I wasn't alone. I had called a couple of my neighbors, people who had also dealt with her nonsense. They weren't victims of stolen packages, as far as they knew, but they had received ridiculous HOA fines, unfair warnings, and threats of liens over the most minor infractions. Margaret had ruled the HOA like a queen, but today, she was about to get dethroned. I rang her doorbell, my jaw tight. Margaret opened the door, wearing a silky robe and holding a cup of coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. When she saw the group standing behind me, her eyes narrowed just a bit. "Well, this is unexpected," she said, sipping her coffee slowly. "Back so soon." "I want my package, Margaret," I said, my voice steady now. She sighed dramatically, stepping onto her porch. "I told you already. I was keeping it safe. But seeing as you insist on making a scene, you stole it," I cut in. "And you lied about HOA rules to justify it." Margaret gave me a tight smile. "Let's not be so dramatic. I was merely enforcing HOA policies. You really should read the guidelines. Packages left unattended are considered a security risk. As president, That's a lie," a voice said from my side. It was Greg, one of my neighbors and a longtime resident. "There's nothing in the HOA bylaws about confiscating packages. I've read every page." Margaret's eye twitched. "Well, it's an unwritten rule. Some things are just common sense. Mail theft is a federal crime, Margaret," I said, pulling out my phone. "And I have you on camera. So, unless you want to deal with the police, I suggest you return what you stole." Margaret's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. "Honestly, all this fuss over a little box. Where is it?" I demanded. She took another sip of coffee. "I'll have to check with the compliance committee." "The compliance committee?" I repeated. "What are you talking about?" She rolled her eyes. "The package was turned over for inspection. We have to ensure no contraband is being delivered to the community." I blinked. "Contraband? Are you seriously trying to say my package, sent from a verified retailer, is contraband?" She lifted one shoulder in a lazy shrug. "Rules are rules." Greg scoffed. "That's not a rule, Margaret. You're making this up as you go." The other neighbors murmured in agreement. Some of them looked furious. A few looked nervous, people who had clearly been bullied by Margaret before but never had the courage to speak out. Margaret must have sensed the shifting tide because she suddenly straightened her posture, her tone hardening. "Look, you people don't understand how much work it takes to run a community like this. We have standards. I was simply enforcing them." "No," I said, taking a step forward. "You were stealing. And you just admitted it in front of witnesses." Margaret's mouth opened, then snapped shut. "Give me my package," I said again, my patience gone. She stared me down for several long seconds, then sighed dramatically. "Fine. But don't come crying to me if the HOA fines you for breaking the rules." I held back a laugh. "I'll take my chances." She turned on her heel and disappeared inside, slamming the door behind her. I exchanged a glance with Greg. "She's stalling, obviously," he muttered. "She's probably trying to figure out how to cover her tracks." Minutes passed, then 5, then 10. I rang the doorbell again. No answer. I knocked hard. "Margaret, I know you're in there." Silence. Greg exhaled. "She's really going to play this game, huh?" One of the other neighbors pulled out their phone. "Should we call the police?" Before I could answer, the door finally flew open. Margaret stood there, red-faced, but not from embarrassment. From fury. "Your stupid package is missing," she snapped. I frowned. "Missing? What do you mean, missing?" "I placed it in the compliance office, and now it's gone." My stomach dropped. "You're lying." Her nostrils flared. "I don't have it. Someone must have taken it after I stored it away." Greg scoffed. "Oh, so now you're the victim?" Margaret's eyes darted between us. "I can't control what happens after I confiscate items." I laughed bitterly. "You're telling me you stole my package, hid it, and now it's magically vanished?" Convenient. I did not steal it, she screeched. I was following policy. Enough with the policy excuse, I snapped. Either you return my package, or we escalate this to law enforcement. Margaret hesitated, her hands clenched into fists. She knew she was cornered. Before she could spew another excuse, one of the other neighbors, Beth, a woman in her 60s, spoke up. We can check the compliance office, can't we? I'm on the HOA board. I have a key. Margaret's face turned white. That won't be necessary. Beth pulled out her keychain. Let's go then. Margaret didn't have a choice. The group followed Beth down the street to the so-called compliance office, which, as it turned out, was just an old storage shed near the community center. Beth unlocked the door and swung it open. And there it was, not just my package, but dozens of them, stacked haphazardly on shelves. Some were opened, others were still sealed. Gasps filled the air. Greg whistled. Well. Looks like we found Margaret's little treasure trove. I stepped inside, scanning the labels. These weren't abandoned packages, these were stolen. Margaret stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mixture of panic and rage. You can't be in here, she stammered. Beth ignored her, picking up a box with her own name on it. This is mine. This was delivered last month. Others started recognizing their packages too. The murmur of shock turned into outrage. I turned back to Margaret, my heart pounding with satisfaction. This isn't just HOA overreach, I said slowly. This is theft. And you're about to pay for it. Margaret opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked scared, and she should be. Because I wasn't letting this go. The neighbors weren't either. Margaret had spent years abusing her power, thinking she was above the law. But today she had finally lost control. The aftermath. The fallout was swift. The police were called, and Margaret was arrested on charges of mail theft and fraud. The HOA board, which had enabled her for years, was dissolved, and new leadership was elected. The stolen packages were returned to their rightful owners, and a full audit of the HOA's finances revealed even more corruption. Margaret's trial was the final nail in the coffin. She was found guilty on multiple charges, including mail theft, fraud, and financial misconduct. Her sentence included hefty fines, restitution payments, and a permanent ban from holding any HOA position ever again. She lost her home, her reputation, and her power. As for the neighborhood, it finally felt like a community again. The new HOA board focused on actual improvements, better maintenance, community events, and policies that actually helped homeowners instead of punishing them. The stolen funds were tracked, and legal action was underway to reclaim what Margaret had taken. But even as I enjoyed the peace, a nagging feeling stayed in the back of my mind. Margaret may have been defeated, but something told me this wasn't over. A few weeks after her sentencing, I received a letter from prison. It was from Margaret, and it was filled with hatred and threats. You think you've won, she wrote, but this isn't over. I'll be back. I showed the letter to Greg and Beth, and we laughed it off. But deep down, I knew Margaret wasn't done. Some people never let go of their grudges. Some people live for revenge. And Margaret? She was the type to hold on to resentment forever. The final twist. At first, everything seemed fine. Margaret was gone, and the neighborhood was better than ever. But then strange things started happening. A neighbor's car was keyed overnight. The community mailbox was vandalized. Files mysteriously went missing from the new president's office. Then one night, Greg called me. His voice was dead serious. You need to see this. I rushed over, and he pulled up his security footage. There, in the dead of night, a figure was lurking outside my house, watching. The quality was grainy, but the posture, the mannerisms, it wasn't Margaret, but it was someone who worked for her. Remember how Margaret always bragged about her connections? Greg said. What if she's not working alone? A chill ran down my spine. Margaret may have been gone, but what if she had friends still in the neighborhood? What if she wasn't done? I decided to set up extra cameras, covering every angle of my property. A few nights later, I caught someone breaking into my mailbox. This time, I got a clear look at their face. It wasn't Margaret, but it was one of her closest HOA enforcers, the same woman who had backed her up in every meeting, the same woman who had helped enforce fake fines. I called the police immediately. By morning, the new HOA president had pulled records and discovered that this woman, let's call her Linda, had been meeting with Margaret's lawyer and passing messages from prison. Margaret was still pulling strings from behind bars. Her plan? To sabotage the HOA, to make it collapse under the new leadership. If she couldn't have control, she wanted revenge. But now she was caught, and so was Linda. The police got involved, and Linda was arrested for trespassing and mail tampering. The final remnants of Margaret's influence had been removed for good. Justice had been served. The final reflection. One evening, Greg, Beth, and I sat outside, enjoying the quiet. The neighborhood was peaceful again. No drama, no corruption, no Margaret. Beth took a sip of her drink. Think she'll ever try something again? Greg smirked. If she does, she'll be dealing with us. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the past few months lift off my shoulders. She lost, I said simply. She's done. And deep down, I knew it was true. Margaret had spent years terrorizing this community, and now she was nothing more than a bad memory. Justice had been served, and the best part? She had done it to herself.